Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Outgrow's Marketer of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Saksham Sharda. I'm the creative director at outgrow.co. And for this month, we're going to interview Allyson Letteri, who is the marketing leader and tech startup advisor and author of Standout Startup. Thanks for joining us, Allyson.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, Allyson, we're going to start with a rapid fire round just to break the ice. You get 3 passes. In case you don't want to answer the question, you can just say pass, but try to keep your answers to one word or one sentence only, okay?
Great.
All right, so the first one is, at what age do you want to retire?
My 50s, but time flexibility is most important to me.
How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
15 minutes. I have to get out the door quickly with kids.
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
Ooh, walking into a glass wall at a big party.
Favorite color?
Green.
What time of day are you most inspired?
Mid-morning, 10 a.m.
One word description of your leadership style?
Empowering.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
I need at least 6.
Fill in the blank. An upcoming marketing trend is blank.
Generative AI to accelerate content creation.
Top priority in your daily schedule?
Self-care, exercise before getting into my work.
The city in which the best kiss of your life happened?
Paris.
Memorable career milestone?
Getting to lead a team for the first time and build it from scratch at Thumbtack.
Pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk?
Zuckerberg.
The biggest mistake of your career?
I underestimated how much my 20s would put me on a specific career path.
How do you relax?
Walks outside.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
2 non-fat lattes.
A habit of yours that you dislike?
I'm always a few minutes late.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life?
Focus on what matters.
And the last one is your favorite Netflix show?
The Diplomat.
Okay, and one more. The last song you've been listening to?
Lots of Taylor Swift this summer.
All right. Well, that was the end of the rapid fire round. You scored quite well, actually. So
Oh, good.
that was great. Is there any question you want to elaborate on in more detail? Any story that comes to mind from any of these answers?
Let's see. After business school, the question about career mistake, I don't think I've made a lot of mistakes and that each decision has led to something very interesting. But coming out of business school, I didn't know I would be a marketer, and I definitely didn't know I would be a product marketer. I'm not really sure I knew what that was. And so the first job I took after consulting was at Intuit, and that very quickly shaped the types of experience I got. And I don't think I realized that that would put me on a tech marketing path. I think I thought I was going to go down a very different path before that. So once you start to get a depth of experience in one area, as you get deeper into your career, it's a bit harder to backpedal and start something totally fresh and new. So I've loved my path, but I was maybe less intentional about the jobs I took in my mid to late 20s and didn't anticipate where that would lead me.
So speaking of your career, then it has spanned high growth tech companies in Silicon Valley where you've built and led marketing teams. Could you share some key insights or strategies you've used to successfully scale marketing teams from scratch in both B2B and B2C settings?
Yes. In every case, it's so important to start with goals and really understand what is the company trying to achieve and what can marketing do to help achieve those goals as quickly as possible. And when I started at Thumbtack and Handshake, I came into 2 different situations, which meant we needed to build out a different type of team and different functions within marketing. So at Handshake, we really wanted to reshape perceptions around why Handshake is the unquestionable best place for college students to find jobs and employers to recruit college students. And so we needed to refresh the brand and our messaging to really stand out from other career platforms. And we needed new ways to acquire employers and students. So there was a lot of acquisition and branding work. Whereas at Thumbtack, we were doing great on the acquisition front, but many of our service professionals, Thumbtack is a platform to find local service pros to do a huge range of jobs. They would get started on the platform, but unless they got hired relatively quickly, they wouldn't stick around. So the work was really to figure out how to engage our pros more effectively in their first days and weeks on the platform so that they would use us as their main lead generation source for months and years to come. And so thinking about goals and what we needed to build really informed who I hired and the sequence of functions that I built out. So that was a big learning. The other thing I'll say is that when you're building a team in a fast growing company, you have to think on different time horizons. So in every case, I walked into a function that really didn't exist. So had to think about how do we get work done now and make progress towards our goals while building towards the bigger team that has all of the capabilities we need. So that often meant doing some of the work myself and hiring agencies or freelancers to get us started, but spending quite a bit of my time hiring and building out the MarTech stack and the set of people we needed to achieve the full funnel marketing strategy down the line. I'll say for B2B, it's essential that marketing and sales have a strong relationship. And so aligning on what is the go-to-market motion? Is this more of an outbound, high-touch, or account-based marketing motion where sales is involved early on and marketing supplying content and messaging to enable sales? Or is it more of an inbound motion where marketing is really casting a net with content and trying to attract people in and then qualifying leads for sales? So those conversations go really well, and sales is really only spending their time on companies and people that are more likely to be a great fit for the product. That informs wildly different metrics, success metrics, and capabilities to build. So it's critical to have that discussion and figure that piece out. Whereas in B2C, it's really more about marketing and product partnership. So it's often more of a self-service motion. Customers will find out about the product and then they're signing up on their own. And so really need to get clear on what are the levers marketing can pull to attract and onboard and engage customers, but then how can marketing uniquely play and what channels will they test? How can marketing and product work together to make sure that conversion continues to go up along the funnel? And so depending on which type of team you're building, your focus areas and those partnerships will look different.
So you spoke a lot about hiring people and how a lot of your time was taken up with hiring. Especially in this economy, there's been such a turnover of employees coming in and going out. How is a marketing manager supposed to keep track of this and not invest all their time in just hiring?
Well, marketing's so interesting because it spans an incredibly diverse range of roles, from some of the most technical and data-driven roles in the company to some of the most creative roles. And so a marketing leader definitely needs to adapt their style to the different function and the different people that they're working with at that time. And I'll say that I've learned over my career that uh, thinking of yourself as a manager who's in service to your team and adapting your style to the needs of that particular person has been absolutely critical. So whether it's a certain type of coaching or focusing on the resources that they need at that time, helping them build the cross-functional relationships that will help them get the job done. I think it requires retaining a team and not spending all your time on hiring, relies on being a very nimble manager and kind of taking yourself out and thinking, how can I help this person on my team do their work most effectively and achieve their goals? And so that's where I've always spent a lot of my time and attention.
And so you now advise founders and leaders at VC backed startups, helping them fast track marketing decisions of all kind and building growth focused teams. So could you elaborate on some common marketing challenges that these early stage startups encounter and how your guidance addresses these challenges?
Yes. I see a lot of patterns. And one of the most common things that happens in a first conversation with a founder is they'll say something like, I know I need to be posting on LinkedIn, but that's very overwhelming. How will I create all that content? Or I need to do more in paid advertising, or my SEO strategy is all wrong. It's very channel first. And I think that happens because people without a marketing background often don't have a framework or a way of thinking about a holistic marketing strategy, and then thinking, where does a channel or a particular program fit into that? So one of the first things I do with a founder is help them think about their marketing strategy along the customer journey. I think of this in 5 phases. So what are you doing to attract totally new leads or people into your marketing universe who've never heard of your product before? And then the second phase is nurture. Now that you have their attention, what content are you sharing, or experiences or demos that help someone see that your product is the best fit for them? It's different and better than the alternatives. The price is right. It will get them the outcome they want, so that ultimately they move to the third phase, which is convert. And so at that point, they're becoming a user or they're becoming a customer. And you shift into the fourth phase, which is onboard. So how do you accelerate time to value and help that new user realize, yes, this is the product for me, I want to keep using? And finally, the fifth phase is engage. And hopefully that's the longest phase of your relationship with this customer. But how do you continue to drive active use? How do you expand accounts? And so once a founder is thinking in those terms, we can do a red, yellow, green exercise. Where is your strategy working today? It's shining green. And where is there friction? It might be more yellow or red. And then once we know that, we can think about, what are the customer's needs at that time? What information do they need to move forward and convert to the next phase? So it's really thinking about the content and the messages that help that person. And then the last step is the channel. Okay, now we know what we need to say to someone. What's the best way to reach them? And so that shift in thinking guides a lot of how we build out the marketing strategy. And we're thinking channel last instead of channel first. The other common thing I see is founders and leaders equating marketing with acquisition or demand generation. So a lot of their thinking is, how do I get new leads in, either to qualify them for the sales team or to go through our self-service funnel? And while acquisition is a vital part of marketing strategy, it's really important to think about the mid funnel before you go straight to top of funnel. So once you actually have the attention of your ideal customer, where do you land them? What are you offering them? What does your website say that entices them and makes them realize this is the right solution for them? What experiences through either longer form content or webinars or events are you inviting them into? And then, of course, once they do convert, is your onboarding setup effective, either with an account manager and more of a sales-led organization, or more self-service onboarding? Are you inviting leads into a leaky bucket, or is there a very strong chance that they will be successful if they start using the product? So it's often rethinking mid-funnel and onboarding before pouring energy into paid, earned, or other channels to attract leads. And then the last one I'll highlight that's very common is, my messaging is out of whack. My website reflects, version 1 of my product, and now we're on version 5, and we just haven't been able to keep pace. Or what my sales team is saying to describe our product and what marketing is saying is totally different. And how do I align these? And so going back to go-to-market basics, really, and defining your ideal customer, your positioning, how are you different and better, and your brand personality becomes really essential, so that you can create a messaging framework that aligns the entire team. And then you adapt those messages to the different phases of the customer journey. So I have often found that all roads lead back to creating really strong messaging before we can build out the rest of the marketing strategy.
But these kind of startups also often face resource constraints. So, what strategies do you recommend to prioritize and allocate limited marketing resources effectively?
That's such an important question. And I'd say first, again, start with the customer journey framework. So get very clear on where you need to make progress in the next 3 to 6 months. Where is there the most friction? Where are you soft in your acquisition goals or your retention goals, and decide where to focus, because the more fragmented your marketing team is, especially when it's small and resource constrained, the less progress you're likely to make in all of those different buckets. So sometimes that does mean we really just need to focus on generating more leads. Our nurture experience is very strong. Once people land on our website or once they talk to our sales team, they convert. We just don't have enough people coming into the top of the funnel. Or sometimes that is we have great conversion, but we see people dropping out after the first week or month of using the product. So get clear on the phase of the customer journey that you need to focus on. And then again, think about what does the customer need and what is the content you can create, the minimum, most intentional set of content to help someone get to the next step. And then what channels should we be testing to see if we can improve conversion in that phase. So it really comes down to ruthless prioritization and being very clear on the metric you need to move now, and then what's next after that.
So let's talk a bit about your upcoming book now. It's called Standout Startup, and it focuses on irresistible marketing for startups. Could you provide a sneak peek into some key principles or strategies that startups can use to stand out in the competitive market?
I would. I have a proof right here. So my book is called Standout Startup, The Founder's Guide to Irresistible Marketing That Fuels Growth. And I wrote it as a step-by-step guide for early stage tech startup leaders to develop effective product messaging and high converting content. And the reason is because, as I mentioned, this became the blocker for most marketing strategies. We couldn't move forward until we really defined effective messaging and got clear on how we were describing the product in a way that attracted new customers and engaged and retained existing customers. So some of the examples of questions founders would come to me with would be, peak season is coming up. We have to knock sales out of the park, but I know that our sales deck and our website are not set up to convert. Or in other cases, something shifts in the market. So I was talking to a company last week. A new competitor has come in, has basically copied their website and is undercutting them on price. So now it's really challenging for a prospect to compare their product to the other product. And so the book is divided into 3 parts. The first part is about defining your 3 Ps, which are your persona, your positioning, and your personality. And I've found that these are the essential ingredients to be able to develop powerful product messaging. Your persona, or if you're B2B, it's your ICP, your ideal customer profile. So the company that's the best fit for your product, and then the personas that you're selling to and trying to convert within the company. You need to understand their current challenges, both functional pain points, but also emotional and social pain points. What are the things they're trying to overcome with a solution? And then you need to understand the outcomes they want to achieve. What's that desired end state? How do they want to feel? What jobs do they want to have done once they have a product or a solution to solve this problem? And then what motivates them right now to consider solutions, and also what's holding them back. So once you understand this set of things about the person you're talking to, you can start to describe your product in a way that's very valuable to them. Talk about how the product will address their needs, emotional and functional. Excuse me. The second piece is positioning. And this is really about, okay, I can now describe my product in a way that's valuable, but how can I make it stand out from the alternatives? How can we get very clear on what makes our product different and better for that specific ideal customer? And that's the trick, actually, defining the competitive set that customer actually considers, and making sure your product has an X factor that makes it the clear winner over those other options. So positioning is really about defining your differentiators. And then your personality is also a differentiator, but it defines the way you communicate with your ideal customers, your brand attributes, your tone of voice, but also your visual brand identity. And a great personality really helps you build a relationship and build affinity with your ideal customer. So if you nail those 3 Ps, you can move into part 2, which is creating powerful product messaging. And the framework I like to use is, what is your unique selling proposition, your USP, which is the headline statement about what your product is, who it's for, the big promise or outcome that your product delivers and how it's different and better. And then the second part is 3 value prop pillars. So, what are the main benefits that your product creates for your ideal customer that are also differentiated from the competition? And if a customer remembers these 3 things about your product, they are very likely to choose you over the alternatives because it will be clear that your product delivers something unique or is a better user experience. And then last but not least, it's the proof points. How are you backing up the fact that you have claimed that your product can deliver all these great outcomes? And so it's a mix of the functionality and the user experience that delivers the value, social proof, endorsements, customer stories, other outside endorsements that can help validate that your product delivers these outcomes. And then finally, data and information that really proves that your product can do what you're saying it does. And for an early stage startup, proof points become even more important because there is a level of risk involved in saying, I'll go with your product over an entrenched competitor. So I find that's a place where companies often need to make a lot of progress. And then just to quickly touch on the last part of the book, it's very important to then translate that into a high converting content strategy. And this is, again, where you think along the customer journey, what is the content that customers need at each phase? And how can you roll that out in a range of channels so that you're increasing conversion at every step? So overall, it is foundational marketing, but it does set founders and startup leaders up for success in creating a robust marketing strategy and nailing down product messaging, which is really the backbone of any successful strategy.
So did you actually go into 4 Ps or were we still at 3 Ps?
Still, so the 3 Ps are part 1 of the book, the persona,
Okay, yeah.
positioning, and personality. There are so many Ps in marketing, but I've found that if you can nail those down, you can define really effective messaging and a content strategy that really works for your ideal customers.
Are there any examples or case studies that you show in the book that come to mind at this point that demonstrate this in a way?
Yeah, I have a lot of examples in the book, so please definitely dig into that. There's one founder that I mentioned. She is the CEO of a security platform for an e-commerce company. And the reason she started her company was she was finding at past e-commerce companies where she was leading engineering that there was this constant challenge of, do we build a solution in-house or do we go with an out-of-the-box solution to monitor potential risks or security breaches for our e-commerce platform? And she felt like all of the tech options out there, the off-the-shelf options, were subpar. So we really went through the entire process to figure out who is your ideal customer profile, what are the companies that you're selling into, but specifically, who do you need to influence within that company to make them understand that buying your product is a better option than building in-house. And so in the book, we go through an example where we really get into the mindset of an engineering director that's having to make this decision. They feel underprepared to make this decision. They're not exactly sure what criteria they should be using to assess security platforms. They feel a lot of vulnerability because they know that if a security breach happens, their career's on the line. It reflects very poorly on them. And they also know that their team doesn't love to do security related work. They would much rather be building and shipping customer facing features that make the e-commerce platform stronger. So really getting into the mindset of that engineering director sets this founder up for creating messaging that appeals to that person. And then we also talk about differentiators, but part of the content and messaging strategy is actually creating content that this engineering director can take back to their CEO to demonstrate why the products, the way it works, and the customer success stories make it the perfect fit for their company. And it's filled with proof points so that the engineering director has a lot to share internally to get the buy-in they need to drive the purchase.
So you also offer workshops for all this to VC portfolio leaders to accelerate these marketing outcomes. Could you share some of the most valuable takeaways or strategies covered in these workshops?
Yes, I'm very fortunate to work with a range of venture capital firms in Silicon Valley and beyond. And the reason that these workshops are so helpful is many times technical founders don't have a marketing background, and they're faced with making important and expensive marketing decisions and hiring decisions without the knowledge or without knowing what they don't know. And so my workshops really aim to address some of the key questions that come up. They tend to fall in two categories. One is more content and messaging related, and the second is about building a marketing team. So on the content side, one of the most popular ones really goes into creating a core content strategy. And this is where, rather than creating fragmented channel by channel content, I help startup leaders think through what are the key messages you need to get out over the next 3 to 6 months. Where in your funnel is there friction? And so you need content to help customers make decisions. And also, what's happening in the macro environment and in your customers' lives that bring up some really timely themes? What are they thinking about in the next few seasons? Like holiday season is coming up, or back to school season had a huge impact on us at Handshake. And so we then think about what are the minimum few couple pieces of content you can create that move your overall funnel forward, that really create some of the evergreen content that your customers need as they're going from discovering your product to learning more about it and deciding it's for them. But also, what are some of the timely pieces of content you can use to catch attention and potentially pitch to the media, or do more seasonal ad campaigns that might hook someone more than just your evergreen messaging. So this core content strategy is an important part of, I think, a successful early stage startup marketing strategy. And it's a great topic of one of the workshops. The other one is build your startup marketing team. And I developed a framework that I call the GROW framework to help think through the phases of developing the team. GROW stands for G, goals, R, roles, O, org, W, watchouts. So as I've mentioned, any good marketing decisions around what do I build start with the goals. And the goals of the company, whether it's acquiring more customers, retaining more customers, refreshing our brand, changing perceptions, all inform what roles, which is the R, you need to hire for. And I like to think of marketing functions in three main buckets. So first is growth-related roles or demand generation in B2B. These are the more technical marketers, often performance marketers, that are really accountable for acquiring new customers. So that is one of the types of marketer you'll likely need on your team. The second is product marketing, and these are the marketers that are responsible for messaging, go-to-market strategy, and launch of new products or features, but often in many cases, customer marketing. So how are you engaging and retaining your current customer base? So that's the second bucket. And then the third is content marketing, which tends to be an enabler to growth and product marketing, but also owns a range of channels like social media, PR, sometimes SEO. And so really mapping what are the roles we need to the goals that you established in the first step is an important part of this process. The third is defining your org. So now you have a sense for what roles you need, but who should you hire first and how should you build out the team over time? And I've found that many startups go through phases. There's this pre-marketing phase where the founder is often the first product marketer and the first acquisition marketer. And often hiring a copywriter and a designer can really accelerate the founder as they're creating content. The next step is really to decide who is that first actual marketing hire. And I say, instead of thinking about hiring a generalist, it's better to think about this first marketing hire's major and minor, figuratively. So what is the main skill set they need, whether it's more acquisition, growth marketing oriented, or more go-to-market messaging and customer marketing oriented? And then, yes, you need that first marketer to do a little bit of everything, but hire for the capability you need most. And then over time, you're really moving into a flat marketing org where potentially you have a marketing director who's managing a smaller team where you've got just a person or two in each function. And the last stage is really a VP or a CMO where you have depth of functions and multiple people in each of those different areas. And one of the mistakes I sometimes see is that startups jump straight to hiring a VP or a CMO. And that person's genius tends to be setting strategy and executing through a team. And so I do see startups get in trouble when they go straight to someone who's more about team building and strategy setting than someone who's ready to take on whatever is necessary and do a lot of execution work early on in a startup's life cycle. And then lastly, the watch outs. Some really common pitfalls that I see startups getting into are number one, not preparing the cross functional team for what marketing is and the role it can play. So it's so vital that sales understands how to partner with marketing in a B2B org and that product really embraces marketing in a B2C org. Also, thinking about the resources your marketer will need, setting clear goals, and finally, advancement. So, marketers are very ambitious. There's lots of different ways they can get career growth, but thinking about that ahead of time before you hire can be very helpful when it comes to retention and a thriving, happy team.
So, given all this extensive experience that you have in product marketing, could you provide some insights into the evolving landscape of product marketing in the tech industry? Like, how has it changed over the years, and what trends do you foresee?
Product marketing is such an important and powerful function. It plays so many different roles. I also think it's misunderstood in many cases. And many of my conversations also start with what is product marketing? What do I need it? What does it do? So, to highlight, I think one of its most important roles, defining your go to market strategy is essential. And it really sets up the rest of the marketing team for success. So, the reason I wrote my book about these first steps of the go to market strategy, defining your ideal customer. Who are you talking to? What messages resonate with them? How are you positioned in the market so that your product stands out from the alternatives? What is your personality? How can you communicate consistently? The entire marketing team and really the entire company needs to understand those things. So, empowering product marketing to lead the process to make those decisions, but also involving a very cross-functional team in those decisions is essential. And so I find that when sales and product leaders and certainly the CEO or founder are involved in setting that go-to-market strategy, the rest of marketing can be much more effective. And really, so can sales and product because everyone's aligned on what are we standing for in the market and what's the roadmap we'll use to get there and what are the messages we'll create to make sure customers understand that about us. So go to market's an essential piece. The second thing that I have learned is that the more marketing and product can be working together on every stage of the product development process, the better outcomes a team will get. And what I mean by that is sometimes marketing is brought in at the last minute to launch a feature or launch a product. The product team is agile, they're releasing features as they see things working, and they pull product in last or full marketing in last minute. But if marketing can have a seat at the table in the planning cycle, so really thinking through what are the unmet needs of our customers, product marketing does a great job at finding customer insights, synthesizing what sales is saying, and really bringing that information to the product and the dev team, and then deciding to build features that both advance our positioning. So how can we look and be stronger in the market, but also address these unmet needs? That's so important. And then marketing can be involved in launching the beta and the tests where the product team is validating whether these features work and whether they want to take them to general availability. And when marketing is involved in that stage, they're getting lots of user feedback and they're hearing directly from customers about what's working, what's not working, and they're testing messages so that when it comes time for the launch, marketing's very clear on the value of this product. They're able to work it into their messaging framework and their content. And generally, the launch is more successful and product and marketing feel more aligned. So I would like for that to be a trend. And I do see more success when that happens. And then the last thing I'll say about product marketing, so especially in times like we're facing right now, where there's the shift to profitability away from growth at all costs. top of funnel marketing spend is being cut, there is a bigger role for customer marketing. So how can product marketing and customer marketing and product marketing are very interrelated. How can we retain more customers through marketing levers? And so I see that product marketing plays an even bigger role in times like this. How can we launch effective life cycle marketing programs where behavioral based or time based reminders really nudge customers to take a certain action? How can we create seasonal campaigns to create energy around a specific moment? So, as an example, at Handshake, back to school season was very important and very engaging to employers and students. Employers were eager to hear about our latest features and any of the latest tips on how to recruit the best possible class for their next internship class or their next first year hires class. And students were coming back to campus knowing that they needed to get their act together and start the internship search process. And so they were open to hearing, okay, which platform is best for me and how do I use Handshake most effectively? So seasonal campaigns around these peak moments became very important to engaging existing customers. And then finally, feature launches. Over time, you will be delivering more and more value as you roll out new features on your roadmap. So product marketing plays a very important role in making sure your current customers understand that. And in B2B, partnering with account managers to make sure that your customer base sees the value of new features, starts to use them, rolls them out to their team, and ultimately decides to stick with and expand your product. So that role of customer marketing, I think, is becoming ever stronger. And it's so important. And I love that about product marketing.
And so the last question for you is of a personal kind. It is, what would you be doing in your life if not this right now?
I have always been very creative, and so I partly got to scratch that itch with writing the book. But I'm also a painter, so I have had periods of my life where I spend a lot of time painting. Did a lot of that a couple years ago, so probably being a watercolor or acrylic painter of mostly nature.
Well, hopefully we get to interview for the Painter of the Month once, once upon a time. We'll see.
I'd love that.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for this month's episode of Outgrow's Market of the Month. That was Allyson Letteri, marketing leader and tech startup advisor and author of Standout Startup. Thanks for joining us, Allyson.
Thanks so much for having me.
Check out their website for more details, and we'll see you once again next month with another Marketer of the Month.